Another threat you need to prevent in a web application is a cross-site request forgery, or CSRF. Cross-site request forgeries are dangerous and extremely subtle attacks. Here's how it works. Imagine a user coming to your site and trying to update some information that requires authentication before they're allowed to perform the update. So you'll force the user to log in. And once the user logs in with Forms authentication, your site will send the user's browser an authentication cookie. And then on every subsequent request to the site, the user's browser will send that cookie along, and ASP.NET will see the user is already authenticated. There's nothing wrong with the browser sending the cookie along. This is how browsers and cookies work, and it means the user doesn't have to enter a password on every single request they make. They authenticate themselves once, and the cookie will allow them to remain authenticated, at least for the duration of the session. What is a problem is that if the user visits some other site, or is tricked into picking up some HTML from a malicious source which has bad intentions, then this malicious source can provide a form just like a form that our application would have given to the user. And then if the user submits this form, the call again will be authenticated because the authentication cookie we gave to the user's browser always travels along on every request to our app. And we'll save the information in the database like we always do when we have an authenticated request. Only, the information in the request probably isn't something the user wanted to submit. Someone tricked the user into transferring money or editing their account. The problem here is that it's not enough to simply say that we need the user to be authenticated when they submit some information. What we also have to check is the information that the user is submitting coming from a form that our application presented to the user? We want to prevent them from being tricked into submitting information from some malicious source. To demonstrate a cross-site request forgery, I'm going to apply the authorize attribute to both of the edit action inside of the reviews controller. This means that a user who wants to edit a review will need to log in and authenticate themselves before they're allowed to do this. And once they've authenticated, they can make some changes to a review and will successfully save that in a database. Now, as a developer, I'm fairly confident that having this authorize attribute in place will prevent a malicious user from editing a review. But watch what happens when I, as the logged in user, come across an interesting link here that's on my desktop. And this link could represent a link that I click on from an email or from another website in one of the seedy areas of the internet. I click on the link, and I see a page come up that's a little bit odd. And when I come back into Ode to Food, I see that the review that I edited has changed. And if we were recording and auditing the users making these changes to restaurant reviews, we'd see it was S. Allen who submitted this change. So what happened? Let's open up and look at the source code of this thing that I clicked on. We'll load it into Visual Studio, and we can see inside is a form whose action points to the website where Ode to Food is hosted, and in fact points to the edit action of the reviews controller. And the form inside has all of the inputs that are needed to apply changes to a review. This includes the ID, rating, and the body, and the dining date. And at the bottom of this page is a little bit of JavaScript to automatically submit that form. And because my browser was open and already authenticated to Ode to Food, the request just went through and those changes were applied. Now that we've seen what a cross-site request forgery can do, how can we prevent it? Well, one step you can take to help prevent this is to use an anti-forgery token HTML helper inside of the form that is going to be in the authenticated postback. What the anti-forgery token will do is add a hidden input to the form with a value that is unique to this user's browsing session. It will also send a matching value in a cookie to the user's browser, so the user has to accept cookies, and that's something that a malicious website would not be able to do. They shouldn't be able to manipulate cookie values for my domain. Inside of the reviews controller, now I can place an attribute on the post destination for that form that will validate the anti-forgery token, essentially make sure that the form value and the cookie value match. And with those two changes in place, let me perform a build. And now, as an authenticated user, I should still be able to edit this review and fix what the malicious user did to it. So let's just put in the string great and save this. And now if I come across a funny link and I just go ahead and click on it, ASP.NET MVC is going to throw an exception and say that a anti-forgery token was not supplied or it was invalid.